It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Radio Show. Brand new show this week. Awesome show. Back in the studio last week. I was out of town last weekend with a awards trip for top agents on our team, and back in here. Great show today. All kind of stuff lined up. And one thing we'll do today is dig in, look at the micro market numbers from last month. They're finally in, and they're very, very interesting to say the least. We'll dig in each zip code and look at, hey, what's going on in your area, in your neighborhood. That's something I get the most questions about and the most, I guess you say, reach outs about, because there's so much different numbers based on what part of the beach you're on. And so, like, for example, last month, Myrtle Beach in the city was down 35%. So we'll look and say, hey, what's going on in that? And again, that's numbers that close in January. I do foresee we'll see a significant bump as we had a nice little huge January. Like I said, our team put 70 plus deals under contract in January. The rates went back down temporarily, and they were amazing, right? All kind of buyers who've been on the sidelines for months jump back in. Rates have been creeping back up. We'll talk about that. They're back in the sevens right now, which has put a lot of buyers on the sidelines, but still numbers are still through the roof in terms of pending contracts, over $200 million in the last 7 days under contract. We'll talk about that and how that anomaly is working and what to look for going forward. And we'll do the same thing we kind of do every week, is just help keep you informed of what's going on, anything and everything real estate related here on the Grand Strand. I have one goal, and that goal is help you make better decisions with the largest assets, and which for most people, that's real estate. And so we'll talk about what's going on locally. We'll talk about what's going on nationally. There's an awesome article that we'll have some data from a lot of top economists on what they think real estate price is going to do the rest of the year. We do have another horror story, just people that, cost themselves $20,000, $30,000 of hard equity by just not getting a true professional to help them through the process. We'll talk about that. In general, we'll talk about what to look for with interest rates. There's a bunch of different opinions on what's going on and how that affects the spring market. And as usual, we have some amazing success stories. Our team's been absolutely crushing it. Like I mentioned, January, February has been on fire. One of these is really cool. It's a listener who reached out about a property they inherited, and we basically say, look, we can get you $25,000 more than you think you can get for the property. She didn't believe us. We got it, and got it within a very, very short of time. So we'll talk about that. A lot of great stuff on today's show.
You may be seeing him on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Friends, the morning show. You heard the personal endorsements here by Sean Hannity, also Barbara Corcoran, Gary LeVox. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now, that's one thing, but the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and that's just the whole DNA and the why behind the show. I've been doing the show at 14 plus years now on the station. And the reality is that I have one goal, because I see so many horror stories every single week where people just give their hard-earned equity away by not understanding the thought process and really how to understand how to pick a real estate agent, why they need a real estate agent. And they make this mistake over and over and over. And the biggest mistake I see is that people make the mistake of thinking that all real estate agents are the same, and it could not be any further from the truth. Just like any doctor, any lawyer, right? If you're charged with a crime you didn't commit, the last thing you want is some part-time attorney who just tried a few cases, right? You want the absolute best, most aggressive attorney who specializes in that type of law. And so you should demand that same level of excellence when you're talking with your largest assets. Or, same thing if you have a healthcare provider, you want the absolute best person who specializes in that type of healthcare to give you some type of advantage to help beat that. And you want that same thing in regards to your largest asset, but most people don't really ask the right questions. They ask, what do you charge? Or, who do you know? Or whatever it is. They don't understand how to ask the right questions to understand, hey, look, what makes it different? If you look at the overall real estate industry, it's just a service-based business. And what that means is it's driven by people, and people are different, and all people are different. The way they think, the way they operate, the way they talk, the way they take action or don't take action, just like your waiter or waitress, right? Sometimes you're at the same restaurant, have an amazing experience. Sometimes you go back to that same restaurant, have a terrible experience. Usually the difference there is the person involved. And so you want to understand, look, there's a long sales cycle when it comes to real estate, a lot of nuances that really ins or outs that cost or make you money. And so What we did was we said, look, there's got to be a better way than the old school model. The old school model we saw out there is like an old school 8-track tape or cassette tape. And really, it's still how 95% of agents operate in the real estate industry in North America. We call it the old school cassette tape. They're still doing old school things, old school ways in a new world, and it doesn't work as well. And so what I did is I said, look, how do we design this iPad Pro? How do we have something that's much more efficient, much better technology-wise? And that's what I did, is design these two systems that Dave talks about. And one's for sellers, called the Guaranteed Sold system. One's for buyers, called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying system. But both those are designed to do one thing, which is give you a massive competitive advantage when you're buying or selling. And what we do is we actually manage those variables. I mentioned that it's a very long sales cycle. So what people don't realize is that when you're selling a house, there's 100 plus variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. If anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point, that costs you your hard-earned equity. Or what happens now, we're seeing that a lot more as the market slowed down, is the property does not sell. And so really what I see happen the most, and really the silent killer, so to speak, is that people think, oh, I sold my house, did great, but they don't realize they have $40,000 on the table. I told a horror story last week where some lady didn't use an agent. She wanted to save 3% and gave $80,000 of her hard-earned equity away to save 3%, which is really about $5,800. And you see this happen over and over and over again. So I said, look, there's got to be a better way than the old school model. And what we did was we said, look, how do we know those 100 plus variables, and how do we create a system that's proven repeatable, that creates maximum leverage for our clients at every single one? And how do we stack those dominoes in our clients' favor? And that's exactly what we did. The Guaranteed Sold system manages all those variables from A to Z with two main things: a team of people, where we have a team of specialists where each person specializes in what they do, from inside sales to outside sales, listing coordinator. We have closing coordinators. We have somebody who does our photography and virtual reality walkthroughs for us. And all those things are handled by someone who specializes in that, versus where most agents operate, you have the same person trying to juggle all those balls. And so in essence, what most realtors are doing is you have the same person in McDonald's that's trying to do the front register, the drive-through, and the french fries at the same time. And it's very, very, very inefficient, especially when you're talking about a long sales cycle. And even on top of that, what most of them do are work with 4, 5, 6, or 10 listings at a time, and they can't keep up with all those variables. And so we break that down to make sure that we manage all those to give our client that massive competitive advantage. On the buyer side, the same exact thing there too. We mapped out what has to happen from A to Z and create a system that's proven repeatable. What that system does, it gets you basically priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price,